I know what Barry's like, I know what the players are like. I think overall they'll be a wee bit disappointed that it didn't maybe have a bigger go.
So for me, I think Jota comes back in and Maeda will go through the middle.
Worst thing about the dink, probably 2 yards after it left his foot, it's already over the bar.
So congratulations to everyone involved. Get co-managers there as well, winning the first title in Scotland. Welcome to the warm-up, brought to you by William Hill, a proper supporter of the SPFL. I don't know where Stephen Naismith is. We've scraped the barrel for his replacement this week. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you as
The
well.
happiest guy in Scottish football.
It's been a lot of time with you recently, though.
I'm going to try and drag you down over the next hour or so and see if we can get you to be a bit grumpy about something. Two top guests as well, Kevin Thomson and Scott Allan. How are we both?
Yeah, all good,
You
thanks.
We got in some sort of colour coordination here. You and Kevin are matching, me and Scott. It's like we planned this.
We got sent the memo, didn't we?
We arranged it last night. It is the morning after the night before for Rangers. Kevin, the Europa League campaign comes to an end in Bilbao. What did you make of it?
Obviously, I think the boys had done terrifically well to get to where they got to. I think when you represent Rangers, when you get beat, it's always a disappointment. I'm not so sure they've done enough over the two legs to get through, but at the same time had to come through a wee bit of adversity. Obviously, the first leg playing with 10 men for the best part of 80 minutes, and Dujan Sterling obviously getting injured late on as well. So I think when you break the game down, I'm not so sure they create enough chances to actually win the game against obviously a really good team. But there'll still be disappointment there, no doubt.
So one of them, Scott, like that, the disappointment comes from the fact that they were never like really out of it, never miles out of it. It always felt like they were kind of in it, but then as Kevin says, probably never really in an ascendancy at any point for a number of reasons, to be fair.
Yeah, I think you got to look at the Ibrox performance in isolation in terms of going down to 10 men and how well they obviously dealt with that as a team. Then going over there to Bilbao, it's a different kettle of fish. I think Rangers, in terms of an attacking sense, would have obviously wanted to create more chances, but they do have some real quality throughout their team, and it was just a case of hanging on and maybe nicking a goal. Obviously, we'll probably speak about what could have been a penalty, what might not have been a penalty, but for me, I think over two legs just didn't do enough. But to get there in the first place, I think they deserve a huge credit.
Tom, did Bilbao offer what you expected from them in terms of being like a Spanish team and obviously possession-based team?
Nah, possibly no. I know obviously domestically they spend a lot of time playing the counter-attack, hard to beat, only lost 4 games in La Liga. I'm sure that was one of Coisty's stats last night on commentary.
Less than Real and Barca.
Which is incredible, to be fair. But I actually thought they were there to be got at in the first leg, albeit the game transpired with 10 men. So I think being robust and compact Rangers and Rangers playing on a counter-attack, I think didn't suit Bilbao as much as it would if Rangers had maybe had a go at them. I think last night you could see that when Rangers did get further up the pitch, when the ball turned over, they were quite dangerous, and I think they probably played a bit like an Old Firm team where they batter you in a wee bit of submission last night. But I think I know what Barry's like, I know what the players are like. I think overall they'll be a wee bit disappointed that it didn't maybe have a bigger go.
Where does that come from? You think if you're in any game and you know if you are against what's perceived to be a superior opponent and they really batter you, you almost hold your hands up. But Rangers will feel like that didn't really happen. So could they have given an extra bit and maybe unsettled them a bit more? Yeah,
I think so. I think they'd have gone into the second leg with a lot more confidence than they went into the first leg with. As Tomo said there, playing with 10 men, they had to contain them, but I think they did it extremely well at doing that. So 11v11 in the second leg, I think I've heard a few post-match interviews where players are saying probably didn't play to the best of our ability. I think they were kind of in that mindset of contain them, and then when they concede, it's really hard to flip that mentality rather than like the lads are saying there, going at them and just making a game of it, 90-minute game of it. I think that's the only disappointment Rangers will have, because I'll be honest, when the draw was made, I thought, Bilbao would be a lot better than Rangers. I thought it was a massive, massive task for them. After the first leg, I thought they're in with a chance at it, and I just don't think they capitalised on that in the second leg.
It's taken me a while, hours of research. I've gone through the bowels of the internet over and over, radio, phone-ins, speaking to people in the street. I've finally found somebody who doesn't think that was a penalty on Cyriel Dessers last night. Come on, admit it.
Listen to my view of it. I'm saying
we're all listening.
In terms of the referee's decision, I don't think VAR was going to overturn it. I've seen a lot of people saying, well, VAR should have done this and done that. I believe that the referee's seen the tug, so I think on the audio it will probably say, I've seen it, but there's not enough contact for him to go down in the way that he did. I think if Dessers just stops rather than throwing himself over, I think it's more of a decision for the referee to make. But I think as soon as you throw yourself over as a player, it gives the referee an out of saying, well, there wasn't enough contact for that to happen. I know the shirt rips, but we were speaking about it off air. I think he just caught him at the sweet spot, as we were saying, and it's just ripped his shirt. So I don't think I can take that into account. I just think if
He's now a football shirt manufacturer.
Well, just about the sweet spot of football.
do you think he pulls him hard enough to rip his shirt?
Obviously.
No. So
It's a heart.
Come on.
We don't see that a lot. We
No,
don't
you
see
don't.
that a lot, to be fair. But at the same time, for me, it shouldn't matter whether you go down, what way you go down or not. If it's, they should have looked at it for sure. For me, it's a penalty.
But how do VAR go against? So if I'm the referee and I say to you, Scotty, I've seen the contact, but there's not enough contact for him to go over. It has to be a clear and obvious error. So what are you then going to say to me to then say, well, it
I've
is
got
a
an
clear and
idea.
obvious error? Go on.
Do you know what you've not seen? You've not seen the big hole that's been ripped in the shirt.
Come on. That's like saying, nah, I'm not having it because his shirt rips. It has to be a penalty. There still has to be. If I'm saying to you, Gordon, I've seen the contact and I don't believe there's enough contact for him to go
But that's
over.
that.
So whatever the
Do
referee
you think
goes with
Dessers
on
gets
the
there?
pitch, I think it's very, very close. I think whatever the referee decides on the pitch is what they'll go with. So if the referee says it's a penalty, they're not going to overturn it because he's saying, I've seen contact, it's enough for him to go over. But equally, if he says the other way, I've seen contact and there's not enough for him, I don't think VAR should be blamed for this. I think should be ended at ref.
Do you not think, though, that because Scott's right, it's a unique case. We don't see the shirt ripping like that. But because that happens, I do take your point. That doesn't necessarily mean it's automatically a penalty. But that's the whole point. Not every shirt pull is a foul. I think we all accept that. And when you're in the box and you're at close quarters and things are going to happen. But if you were trying to determine what is or isn't a big enough shirt pull, it feels like a hole in the shirt might be quite a nice clue for you.
Yeah, I think that makes it difficult. Like, what is excessive force? What is a pull? What's not a pull? But I don't disagree with Marv, to be fair. I think Dessers doesn't do himself any good going down the way he goes down, to be fair. He naturally obviously feels the tug, he's going to fall. Like, how do you fall and make it look real or look as though you've been pulled? It's such a difficult, the boys will tell you that. Do I think he was getting there? Do I think it was a big enough pull, enough contact? Possibly not. I'm on the same kind of side as Marv. And I think it's hit the sweet spot, whatever we were talking about. It's like hitting a golf shot, it's like perfect. It's like almost the tug has been really difficult to rip. I think he could do that tug 100 times more and he wouldn't rip the shirt.
Right, that's stand
So I find that, but at the same time, the evidence is obviously you could see Dessers gets a yellow card in the aftermath. The strip, like, how much more does he need to do to get a penalty? So I think that's where it becomes a real grey area. And obviously, if you're sitting on the fence that you would love Rangers to have got a penalty, you'd be holding on at the fact that the shirt's ripped. He has pulled on, there is contact, there has to be contact for the shirt to rip. It would have been great to have seen them obviously get the penalty.
I think the nature of it, though, can be quite telling because, as I've said, see if you've all done it, you're in a penalty box and you're holding people at close quarters, that's kind of fine. That, you know, there's a bit of leeway there. If someone is away from you and you have got your arm fully outstretched, you're only trying to do one thing.
Yeah, it's that.
There's no accident or anything, and I know intent might not have to come into it, but there's no two ways about that. You are trying to hold that person back by their shirt as they run away from you.
Yeah, it's the panic stations when, like, oh, I've made a mistake, and you try and grab them. Listen, he doesn't hold them for long. I think that maybe plays into it as well. But
is that because the shirt rips though?
Yeah, but probably is. Yeah, listen, I think we're all going to, well, me and you are going to agree, and I think Marvin and Tom obviously think it's up for debate. But for me, I think the defender obviously panics and think Dessers might get there.
All right, another incident then. We watched Real Madrid v Arsenal and the one with Mbappe.
Yeah.
Is that a penalty?
Good question.
And if it's not a penalty,
question.
why is it not? Because he holds on to Mbappe for longer.
Can we limit ourselves to
Mbappe.
comparing shot pulls?
But was that
That's
different from
grappling,
that?
wasn't it?
Grappling's different.
But he holds him, though, for long enough.
I know
Listen,
that-
this is a man who got a penalty against me, by the way, for completely diving.
How many times is he going to bring this
Do you
up?
know what? And he does. Tommy did the post match, and do you know what he said? I felt a presence. That's why I went down.
presence.
So he cannot be taken into account. He is not a good character reference on this.
I can feel the presence next to me. I'm a bit worried. Okay, at the other end, any complaints about John Suter? The penalty Rangers do concede.
No, there can't be. I've really felt for him because we've been there as a defensive player where, you know, it goes across you, the ball's there, you turn into it and just go to clear it. And listen, this clever striker play, he puts his foot in the way. And unfortunately for Suter, he just catches him. And listen, there's no complaints even from him. I don't think there can be any complaints from anyone with that one.
Educate me, who's never done anything like that. Is there any sort of communication bit that can help with that? I think, you know, Leon Balogun can kind of see what's happening in front and John Suter can't. Am I overthinking that?
It's just split second.
so
It just happens. So top players, they get out your eye line, they get in your eye line, they nip in front of you. It's like what Mark said. It's almost just a coming together. It's a free kick if it was outside the box. It's a penalty if it's inside. It's one of the ones that split-second decision, and you could just tell with Big Soapy the way he reacted that he knew he'd probably just got caught with one.
You see that sort of foul quite a lot now in the box, and you kind of brace yourself for it because you know the guy's coming on the blind side. And listen, Suter was unfortunate, but for me, penalty.
It's funny that you talk about communication in that situation as well, because if one of these two, if I'm on their team, you almost see it happen, but you freeze because you know exactly what they're going to do, but you can't get the words out.
I don't think even a shout would it happens that quick. I don't think a shout is. He probably sees him coming, thinks he's there, thinks he's getting there, and before you know it, you're not. And that's what top players do. Yeah, it's the same.
The timing of that goal, it changes everything, doesn't it?
It does. And I thought they rode their luck a wee bit. Rangers. I thought the Yilmaz going off disrupted the flow. I listened to Tav's interview afterwards and Barry's, and probably done themselves a disservice in the first half how they handled the ball. I thought they started really well at the second half. Probably Barry and the staff needed them to get in at half time. You just wonder, listen, I know it's flying a kite, but you wonder if that scenario never happened just before the half time whistle. If they went in at 0-0, it could have potentially been different, because I thought Rangers started really well in the second half.
There's so much obviously been said for weeks now about Barry Ferguson, the fact that he's in charge of Rangers. That in a single moment probably summed up what the challenge is. Everything's going on round about you. Yilmaz gets injured. I think there clearly was a bit of indecision. Was Nsiala going to come on? He's standing stripped, but then he doesn't. And Conor Barron comes on, but then that requires quite a drastic change then, where Diomande moves position. And I wonder if in hindsight that the Rangers probably wish that played out differently, because they then addressed it and brought Nsiala on at the break, didn't they?
Yeah, of course, especially at that time of the game as well, where it's on a knife edge. I think the one thing you can give Barry Ferguson and his coaching staff is these in-game decisions that they have made in their short tenure so far. Most of them have been right, even if the game hasn't started the right way. They've managed to make the right decisions within the game, which is a credit to them, because not every manager can see the little small things in terms of the detail. So listen, I think overall they'll be frustrated just for the fact that they couldn't really test that Athletic Club defence as much as they would possibly want to. At times, maybe for me, they could have went a wee bit more direct and looked to get higher and get players like Czerny still in the areas where if the ball does drop down, they're right onto it and they can then create from there. But they'll be frustrated. But there's the fact that they've got there in terms of the season that they've had. I think you got to give them enormous credit.
Any regrets about that first half change? It just felt like that was Rangers' least effective bit of the game, was from Yilmaz going off up to the half time break.
Yeah, listen, I think, like you say, Nsiala probably would have been the one that you do bring on and try and keep Diomande in the middle. I think he's massive for Rangers. I think his the way he plays the game, I think the balance he gives them in there as well. I think he make it extremely difficult when he has to go to left wing back, and like you said, then they reshuffle it and then manage to get him back into the middle. But yeah, listen, as we said, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Like Scotty said, when you're on the sideline, you've got that pressure and you're making those changes, it's a lot more difficult. But yeah, I do think they'll definitely look back, and when they reassess it, they said we should have probably left Diomande in the middle.
Do you think the Nsiala decision is based on obviously the games previously?
Yeah, I genuinely do. I think, when it was a Kilmarnock game that he came off early, I think as a manager, they probably, or management team, have looked at that and been like, should we put him into this? But listen, all players have bad games, and when he came on, I thought he did it actually extremely well.
That's the other thing, isn't it? Because then he did do well when he came on. So
it's one of those that you do look at, like, he wasn't great against Kilmarnock, but all players bounce back, and good players have to bounce back regardless of age. So yeah, listen, the way he came on and played the game shows that he is a good prospect as well. So yeah, I do think that was in the back of their minds. But as I said, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think if Barry could go back to that situation, he definitely puts him on, and doesn't make too many shuffles to the team. And
the goal that kills it, that'd be a real frustration, because James Tavernier actually does really well against one of the best wingers in Europe for almost two games. I remember watching, how good was he at the Euros, and I just remember I felt like he couldn't do anything wrong. I had these incredibly high hopes for these performances, and Rangers actually, they managed him fair. I know he had a couple, didn't he, not Mike Yilmaz at the start and stuff, but kept him relatively quiet, and then he popped up at the back post.
And obviously probably a goal that you'd not expect him to score, really. Obviously with a header. So I think Tav, he looks at him, obviously the replay goes, done it a few times, he has a peek, he looks over his right shoulder, sees him again, and then sees him again. When you talk about the top players, the ball goes into an area, and probably one that it could happen a few times again, and Tav would potentially flick it on or deal with it, or Nico Williams might make a run inside or whatever. But that split decision when you play against the best players, it's if you switch off for 1 second, you get punished, and that's what happened.
He said he was organising, didn't he? Taverner said he was organising what was going on in
The
front
danger
of him.
was behind him, wasn't it? They had
And
enough
got
blue
back as
jerseys
well.
in the middle to deal with what was in front of him. So his danger, unfortunately for Tav, was behind him, and that's the one that punishes him.
Yeah, you need to credit obviously a fantastic ball as well, and obviously when a guy's running at that speed, the thing you usually hear is you've got to be more open your shoulders. That's the thing that most people would be obviously critical about, but I think it's exactly what Tomo says, when you're playing at that level against that calibre of player, there's split seconds, like you can, that's how easy someone can get in behind you and score a goal. I think, obviously speaking on NCR, he tries to play centrally, I think, before that actually comes to that action when the ball should probably go down the side. And to me it looked like Athletic Club are looking to, when Rangers did play these straight balls, to then jump on and go for there, because they are obviously a counter-attacking side. But when you look at how Tav did deal with someone of that quality, then if that's the one moment he's waiting for, and he takes it.
I should have got you all to write me a suggestion as to what was on that note that got passed on that nobody could seem to understand. Social media has had great fun with that over the last few hours. Honestly,
I've never had a note in a game.
if you
No,
not,
No one's going to trust you.
I've had a few rollickins, but I've never had a.
He's in the hand you in an attacking midfielder. The defenders wouldn't know what they're doing, man. You never got that far back to tell us.
Yeah, attack you, pass the ball to Scott.
ever received a note?
Yeah, a couple of times. Normally it's like a defensive player that gets it, either captain or defensive player. But obviously Tav didn't know what was kind of written on there, did he? He had to go across. So whoever written their handwriting must have been all over the place, or who knows? To be fair,
What does it usually say? I can't believe I'm asking this. Is it just like a formation?
it's a
Probably.
it's a formation change. Yeah,
Surely
yeah.
it's nothing more than that.
No,
but-
it's just a formation change, and sometimes because the game's going on, when you're given a note, you run back on and like, say Scott and Tommy, they're all over the place, and I'm like, you're trying to get information to them. So
Tavernier was like running up the line reading it. He's trying to.
yeah, the handwriting must have been awful, man.
Anyway, right, bigger picture. What does this all mean? So you're in the building now. Working obviously at Rangers Training Centre. You've got maybe a unique perspective from us in terms of what that atmosphere's like. What's next for say Barry Ferguson and going forward?
I honestly don't know. I genuinely don't know. Obviously, the takeovers in the pipeline, nothing's been really confirmed. There's no getting away domestically. It's been a disappointing season. Obviously, if you get the top 6 fixtures are obviously to come. So I think it needs change. It needs a freshness. It needs new ideas. Obviously the investment is hopefully going to come, which will give that. For Barry and the staff, they've obviously been in the academy, so you've got the 2 separate wings. So even though Barry's come along and seen us a few times, Griggsy, etc., Neely's been along obviously to borrow some of our players to give them opportunities in the first team, which is obviously brilliant. But you'd be surprised how separate an academy is, even though we're the group that's just below them. But they've obviously had a busy schedule with the double game weeks with obviously European football. So
You hoping some of those young players get more?
well,
the
McCallion was
coming
obviously on the
weeks
bench last night.
Bailey Rice
Big
obviously
Ryder
played, didn't he?
Maguire was obviously on the bench as well. So Eddie McCallion's still only 16. He's not 17 until June. So I'm hoping that. I think you need to earn it. I think that has to be paramount. I think you need to earn it, but I certainly think Barry will give some of the younger players opportunities.
What does earn it at this stage of the season look like for you?
For me, Scott, I think it's a consistency of doing well at the level that you're doing it. So McCallion's been a standout for the 19s group since I've went in. He's got a big reputation, Scotland international. He's also went round and done really well. I think you need to earn your stripes, don't you, for first team boys? I think that's the narrative that comes back for the other side is how did he train? What was his personality like? How did he handle the ball? How did he handle the tempo training, etc.? And he's had flying colours for that.
And see when he's going round, is it round for a day and then back
He's actually
out again?
he's been round for a wee consistent period, McCallion, which is good. They've basically said they'll keep him until the end of the season, which is brilliant. But listen, in football that can change, especially if you're a young boy and you turn up with the wrong attitude. I certainly don't think that'll happen with him because he's right at the top of the tree for me. He's technically very good. He's got great personality. He's got a bit about him, which I really like. So I'm hoping that these young ones will hopefully get an opportunity.
What do you think about bigger picture now? Because like Kevin's right, we don't really know even what the takeover situation's like and how any new ownership group would feel about the manager's position. So that's difficult. It feels like the quarter-final stage is obviously good. It's a good achievement. But it's probably not at that level where you say, but you have to give it to Barry Fair. Like he's reached the final or he's won the Europa League. It sits that obviously rung below. How do you feel about what does happen next?
Well, I feel, listen, it's not been perfect in terms of when they've come in. Obviously, you look at the Hibs game, the Motherwell game, they'll be really disappointed with that. That home form has been, with the big question marks, has been over. Obviously, the Rangers team even before Barry Ferguson and his coaching staff came in. But for me, what I liked was the in-game decisions that have swung it in their favour. Obviously, they have showed a bit of character. I know you've mentioned that quite a lot in his interviews. They have. I feel you hear James Tavernier speaking about him last night. He says that he would obviously love to have him past the summer. And at the same time, he's obviously not had a say in signing any of these players. We've seen obviously Bailey Rice come in playing as Tomo says, a young player coming up and playing in such a big occasion and done really well for me in terms of before he got injured. And he knows the club, he knows the DNA. So it's going to be, it's all going to come down to the takeover and what they want to see. But I think Barry Ferguson can hold his head up high. Obviously, that performance away to Celtic being the highlight.
I think you need to show something then, maybe behind the scenes as well, that we won't see. Like I say, if you, and by the way, this is hard for Barry Ferguson. I'm not holding this against him, but if you can produce this irresistible set of results and say to whoever it is, look, we've won nearly every game, or we've got to the semis and the final, and it's based purely on that. But because, like we said, that so Europe's now come to an end, the league is pretty much going to be wrapped up. What would the case be to keep him in the dugout for you?
I honestly think it's a difficult one for him. I think if you're an owner, a new owner coming into a football club, you can look at results. I don't care, or I wouldn't care what's going on behind the scenes. I would want the team to be winning. I think when you at Rangers Football Club, it's about not only winning games but how you win games. I don't think they're just judged on getting 3 points domestically. I think it's how they do that, the way they're playing the game. So I think it's difficult, if I'm honest, for Barry to get the job now at this point. Like you said, getting to quarterfinals is fantastic. I think he's gone in there and there's no doubt about it, he has a passion, and as Scotty's saying there, some of the in-game stuff's been absolutely brilliant, but I don't think there's been a massive upturn from Clermont in terms of points picked up, etc., etc. I think when you look at the Dundee game, it's taken them right to the end to win that game of football. I think being 2-0 down against Kilmarnock, and it's been something that's happened on a few occasions, losing the game to Hibs, losing the game to Motherwell. I don't think if you're an owner looking at how you go forward, you look at that and say, right, this is a stick-on for somebody to get a job. And that's just me being honest with it. I think, these next 5 games, I think to go out there and get as many points obviously as he possibly can. But I think come the summer, if this takeover is to happen, I think they'll probably look in a new direction. But if it doesn't happen, then who knows, maybe he's given the opportunity.
Well, a bit of time now to get over it and take a look at what happens in the league campaign going forward. All about the Scottish Cup semi-finals this weekend, though. Very much looking forward to it. Hearts against Aberdeen. It's only just dawned on me, there's a bit of a Hibs feel to this table. I'm going to need to balance this up. I'm going to need to go full Jambo here just to try and counteract you three.
Doesn't suit you.
On a serious note, how big is this for Hearts given their failure to make the top 6?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge for he's had a bit of stick into it, to be fair to him. I see him come out fighting it, which is fair play to him as well. Saying that if he'd been in the start of the season, he would have got top 6. So this is one that he's put a wee bit of pressure on himself, because I think the Jambos, to be fair, it's on. I know Aberdeen are obviously above him in the league, but I think on probably points form in both teams, I think we probably all collectively say it's a toss of a coin game, really. Without sitting on the fence, I do think the Jambos will win, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Aberdeen obviously get through the final.
It's brilliant that, because in terms of the pressure and the occasion from the outside, cup semis should speak for themselves. It's about getting into the final. That's usually it. But you feel like it does maybe carry a bit more for the Hearts fans? Yeah,
listen, there's no line. There's real frustration there with the Hearts fans. I think you've seen that reaction to obviously the draw at Motherwell at the weekend. I think they expect a bit more from the team. I think a lot of it is landing at Neil Critchley's feet. For me, they've still, when I looked at them at the start of the season, I thought they were a dead set for top 6. I've seen some of the signings they made. I felt they were kind of the right blend of players, but it's just for one reason or another, it's took them a while to get going, and they'll be hugely disappointed. But listen, isolation Scottish Cup semi-final against Aberdeen, they need to go. They need to, from the first whistle, believe they're going to win, because the way the seasons went, they were their fans a bit. I think it's been a real disappointing season for Hearts. So, but at the same time, the flip side of that, Aberdeen, obviously a resurgence, performances are there, they're scoring goals again. Aberdeen will be hugely confident getting into that game as well. In
terms of Hearts, do you think he's had long enough to get them to the top 6? I know he's saying that if I'd have been there from the start of the season, but has he been there long enough in order to close that gap?
Yeah, I would have expected Hearts to. I think if you look at some of the games, and saying that when they played Dundee United a fortnight ago, I felt they were really strong up until James Wilson gets sent off. And Dundee United, obviously we've seen them this season, they can make it really frustrating for teams playing against them, and then obviously get the goal with the extra man. But listen, Hearts should be in the top 60 in the position they were with Neil Critchley. So for me, a lot of it does land at his feet.
I take it you ask that because you think he has had long. I feel really torn on it because, like, I think both can be true. Should Hearts have made the top 6? Probably. They had chances in a couple of games. But I mean, he's factually correct to say that since he came in, if you look at the points per game, the record is pretty good. Now they fell short in the end, so I don't know which. It was like, in Scottish football, it's that you always have to pick one. People are then totally disregarding that if it doesn't suit them and leaning into the fact that it's just quite simply a disgrace that the Hearts don't make it.
I think that's been long enough. I'm with Scotty on this. I think that's been long enough for him to make the top 6. I think going into the last 2 games and only picking up a point, I get it. Sending off against Dundee United changes the game, but I just felt the game against Motherwell, it didn't show nearly enough.
Yeah.
I think, from the first half to the second half, the way they were playing the game, it just looked quite desperate.
Right, I'll indulge you 3 then. But how much has this all been made worse because Hibs have done it?
That is the. I think for me, Marv, if they get to the final and they compete, obviously you want to win it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the microscope will be on them and how they do in the bottom 6 games. I think they need to basically not win them all, but be really competitive in them all and make sure that the minimum they finish is 7th. And I think if they have any untoward, i.e. get beat off Aberdeen and then have a sticky bottom 6, bear in mind you've got 4 or 5 teams in there that are fighting for their life, so the games will be difficult. I think if they go and put a few of them to bed, it might change the narrative going into the summer. I think if they have a sticky time in the bottom 6, I think the writing might be on the wall.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree with that. I think this game tomorrow is absolutely massive for them. And if I had to kind of pin it to one team, I think Aberdeen will beat them. I know what Tom is saying. I just find it so hard for Hearts in terms of them playing a diamond. We played it at Hibs.
Just about to say that if they played a diamond against Shane
I think they will.
that.
I genuinely think they will, and I feel sorry for some of their players. I think young Forrester at right back gets a hard time at times from fans, but he's got no protection out there. I think if they played a diamond tomorrow against Aberdeen, I think they could be in for a long old afternoon. And like I said, if they then lose that game of football, I think it looks extremely difficult for Neil Critchley going forward.
Do you think he goes the diamond that?
Yeah, I genuinely do.
Not if he listens to this podcast before the game.
Just 'cause I played
He's not listening to us, mate.
I played the diamond with Alan Stubbs, and listen, it suits you if you have the players first and foremost. But if you control the ball for most of the game, Hearts don't really do that.
What is it that's hard about it? Those side ones.
The side ones, that's a graveyard shift. It's alright for him sitting at 10, doesn't he? Track it back. It's hard for the 6. It's hard for the 2 8s. And it's alright if you're. I was an 8 in front of him.
Yeah.
On the left.
Oh, were you on the left?
No, I was on the right.
Yeah, Tom
I was on the right.
Because
John was on the left.
Yeah. It's hard.
At that stage of my career, horrible.
Yeah.
Then you get the ball, you're blown.
Had John Doolan shouting at me to press out wide. I'm like, no chance, mate.
And they're danger players for Aberdeen are the wide players. I saw that, at the weekend.
See, on Aberdeen, because I don't need to retell the story. Up, then down, and sort of back again. What a time of the season this is, how delicate it sits for them. They could quite conceivably finish 3rd, get to a cup final, maybe even win it, you never know. And that becomes then, it doesn't really get any better than that, despite the fact that a few weeks ago everyone's grumbling about the poor run of form.
They've had an unbelievable season, haven't they? When you think of like the start to then the middle part to now potentially the end part, is they've almost writ new rules within a season. As in, like, it was unquestionable to think that off the start that they would then have that period to be so poor. But fair play to them, and fair play to the boys. I know Peter leaving really well, and I know he's got a big hand up there, so obviously when you know people within the game, you're desperate to see them do well. And I don't know, I've just got a funny feeling the Jambos might beat Aberdeen, but as I said earlier, toss of the coin for me, really. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I
suppose we kind of saw the best and worst though of Aberdeen, didn't we, against Rangers?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it'd be massively disappointing. Rangers making 9 changes, then going down to 10 men and being 2-0 up and coming back to draw 2-2. I think you saw the frustration after from the Aberdeen players. And like you said there, though, they could have a magical season in terms of like finishing in the 3rd place, and getting to the final. I think Jimmy Tilleen would be saying that. I think he'd be saying to his players, for all the people that wrote us off when we were going through that bad spell, we can rewrite our own history in terms of the semi-final and then the last 5 games of the season. And what a wonderful position for them to be in, because don't forget where Aberdeen were when he came into the football club. Yeah. They're really struggling.
Is the worst thing you can do before you play Celtic in a semi-final is beat them a couple of weeks before?
Possibly.
Johnstone? Yes. Are they going to feel the full force of this?
I think so.
Is that the way it works?
It's hard to get away from Celtic when they
could be 2,000 passes tomorrow. Sunday. Over that, 1,000 passes. Over 1,000 passes.
Scary.
What are you asking him? That's his worst nightmare. You might have liked that. He'd be trying to get out the way of it.
I'd have been in goal, man.
He
There's
likes
no,
1,000 tackles in a game.
There's no doubt when they hit top form, they're a joy to watch. They pop it around, they play, and I think I've got no doubt St Johnstone will try and be resilient and try and be hard to break down, and they're going to need a lot of luck. But I cannot see any other outcome than Celtic getting in the final.
Stating the obvious again, though, that although I'm leaning into the whole, not revenge, but trying to right the wrongs. I mean, that was in Perth, and this one's at Hampden. Is that how much difference does it make?
Oh, massive difference, especially when you look at the pitch up in Perth.
Yeah.
Not being the greatest, but do you know, from a weird point of view, I think Brendan Rodgers would be absolutely delighted in terms of his team talks already written for him in terms of what happened and all the things that came out after it. They can go there on Sunday to Hampden playing St Johnstone. I think St Johnstone are in big trouble. I really, really do.
Interesting though, because obviously, I mean, how unhappy was he, Brendan Rodgers, after that game? And then it wasn't just his words, it was his actions, because he changed the team and Ida played, against Kilmarnock, Jota and Kuhn out. Now, a few weeks ago, if I ask you all what's Celtic's front three in a cup semi-final, you're picking Jota, Kuhn and Maeda, but
I think he's had to be honest. I think even though they've been brilliant when they've been brilliant, and then when they've huffed and puffed a wee bit, they've not. I think even though they're going to go on and obviously potentially win another treble, I think it's a wee bit the mentality of just getting by or just doing it's not enough, which sounds stupid that they could win a treble and clean up. I get the feeling that that's still not enough at times, and I would say that probably comes through Brendan's mentality, that he's always wanting to get better. He's wanting the team to perform at 9 out of 10 every single week, and if you drop below that, then he gets after you. And I think that's the sign of good managers, and it'll keep people on their toes.
Feels like there's been a lot of focus on Adam Ida. We all know about the price tag. Then these chances like last week come along. In that first half, it feels like everybody's scoring round about him. That must be the worst feeling for a striker, because you want in on the action as well. He obviously got a very big moment in the Scottish Cup last season, but can you see him leading the line again? Or
it's an interesting one. Obviously, you asked me 3 weeks ago. It's Jota, as you say, you've got Jota, Maeda and Kuhn, that starting three. I think Brendan Rodgers, obviously at the time where Maeda did then go through the middle, I think he knew that he was going to miss parts of Maeda's game out in that flank, because he gets in at the back post, gets 3 goals. But listen, I thought Adam Ida done okay last week within an amazing Celtic performance. At the same time, where all the bodies were, Adam Ida's in amongst that ball getting played into him. He's having to set it first time, and yes, some went adrift, and some obviously then led to chances made. But ultimately, he's there to score goals. He just hasn't quite hit the form that he would probably expect to. So for me, I think Jota comes back in, and Maeda will go through the middle.
Right, go on then. The final is going to be
Aberdeen Celtic.
Aberdeen Celtic.
Hearts Celtic.
There we go. Sorry, St Johnstone fans, but I'm sure you appreciate they're going to be up against it anyway, against the favourites for the competition. Right, come on. I'll give you 1 minute to indulge me of your semi-final memories, if they're good ones. If they're bad ones, then we can talk about them all day long.
Nah, good ones.
Dundee United, was it?
Yeah, and that was kind of one of those that went from bad memory to great memory, obviously, at the end. Bad memory being Jason Cummings.
I think.
Stepping up for the penalty.
Best ever.
And the thing is, got total confidence in him stepping up, thinking, right, we're on top of them here, penalty kick, like, we're going to really motor on from here. And then he runs up, and then he dinks it. And the worst thing about the dink, probably 2 yards after left his foot, it's already over the bar. So I'm thinking, like, what's going on here? This needs
By
to
the way,
come down.
he'd do that again.
Oh, of course he would. 100%, Tomo. He would have learned nothing from it. And then, obviously, it goes flying over. Half-time, he's given a bit. And then, listen, sign of a good play. We go then to penalty shoot, and he scores a winning penalty. But Conrad Logan,
that was arguably a bad penalty as well.
Exactly.
Scuffed it.
Big Conrad, by the way. Honestly, I've never...
Are people raging at half-time after
that?
Yeah.
100%. Because, you just think to yourself, like, come on, we're probably not going to play as well as we did leading up to that. And then you've done that with it. And he just didn't care. He's just one of those boys that he would take the stick.
How does if it's a conversation, how does that go?
It's the conversation, I can't even explain on here how it went, because it was bad.
He would just probably thought, I've seen somebody do that on the TV. But out all the finishers that would do that, you'd probably the least one you'd expect to do it, because he doesn't really finish with that kind of.
Yeah.
I don't want to say finesse, because he does score different type of goals, but to go up and feel the ball and just lift it over the goalkeeper, probably Jason would be the last person I would expect to do that.
From you? Yeah, me and a few others. I was raging, absolutely raging, because you're running around like a madman, and he does that, and absolutely fuming with him. But big Conrad in goal. Gordon.
What was the story there? So remind me, because he was only signed just before, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's become a Scottish Cup cult hero.
He is.
Oh, rightfully so as
Talk
well.
about written in the stars,
Mate,
big Logie.
honestly, because when he came
He had
into
some
the
big
dressing
chances,
room,
didn't he, to be fair?
Yeah. Came into the dressing room the first day and he comes in and you look at him and you're like, he's in goal. He's in goal for this game.
I thought he was a coach when he first came.
Exactly. This might not go well. And then I don't know what happened, but playing in that game, he's coming out, he's closing things down. And obviously he's a big guy. So as soon as he spreads himself, like striker's not seeing anything, not even the stand, not seeing anything behind him. And he's just saving absolutely everything. Penalty shootout. I think he saved 2 penalties as well. Honestly, absolutely brilliant. And then obviously the rest is kind of history. So yeah, that was kind of the up and down of the semi-final.
It's a great story because he just comes in, and a blaze of glory,
Amazing.
and goes away again, and
Brilliant lad. But he genuinely was brought in not to play, really, was he?
Yeah.
It was so default that he ended up in the sticks. And
someone injured just before then.
just big Mark Oxley, wasn't it? It was Big Ox.
Well, one of them injured and one of them suspended. I
want to say one was suspended. Just trying to think which way. I sat on the bench that day. Me and I think Danny Hanlon maybe had just come back for injury as well. But I think he's somebody. I actually seen some of the archive chances just recently. I want to say Billy Mackay maybe got him behind a couple of times. I'm sure he scored, but
Spittle had one as well. I think.
Made big saves. So, but aye, when he come in, he was. I remember going out and doing a bit fitness work, and I think Tam was right at the bottom of the bucket to try and get a big enough top to fit
He didn't
him.
look match fit, did he?
But what a guy, what a lad, and to be fair to him, the hard work that he done, to be fair, probably earned that wee bit of luck.
How would your Rangers dressing room have reacted to a dinked penalty that lands on the top of the net?
Oh, aye, well, but that's the thing as well. I'm not so sure the personalities that I played with. When you think of boys like Boydies, Kenny Millers, etc., I'm not so sure that they would be dinkers. And it's a bit like what Scotty said. I think out of all the people that would do that, and I genuinely think if the game was played again the next game, they would do the same, because that's his personality. Coming, brilliant personality, obviously, great boy. But when it happened, I'm like, oh no, because what materialised, the rest is history, as Marv said. But if that had went the other way, when you think of players having reputations and when you think of Dave, you know what I mean, what materialised, you know what I mean, it potentially couldn't have happened. I know that's flying a kite, but it's amazing how things transpire.
Why did you not take one?
I've seen him in a box. That's why he didn't take one.
I was halfway line. I was a cheerleader, man. I was taking 11-1. Big Conrad was up there for me if it went
Never,
No fancy
any doubt.
What? In terms of what?
You were never in the conversation at any
Never.
stage.
You know what?
Stubbsy was taking one before
Nah,
us.
no chance. Were you at Hibs when we played Aberdeen in the Cup and me and Effie sent up young Adgerman that was on loan from Man City?
No,
Were you there?
I wasn't there with
So
Adgerman.
we had a penalty shootout against Aberdeen at Easter Road. I'll never forget it. And it went to like sudden death. And we had like me, Effie, and Adgerman's about 19 at this point. So we're all obviously there and thinking, oh no, one of us has got to go up. And I was just like, up you go, mate. He went up and missed.
That's disgraceful.
You threw him under the bus.
That is absolutely.
You're a bad man.
Oh, he's an attacking player. Go up there, mate. You want to loan from Man City? You need to be able to score.
I'd like to do positive memories all day, but we can't. How sore is it when you get to this stage and lose?
It's the worst. It's the same as cup finals. You're brilliant to play well and get your hands on the trophy, but you'd rather play rubbish and win than play well and get beat. It's the kind of cliche stage, to be fair, that no matter what you want to be at whatever it is, the middle of May in the cup final. You certainly don't want to come up short.
Because some are more important than others, as we said. Everybody goes with the same aim of getting to the final, but we spoke about pressure on Hearts. You lose heavily in an Edinburgh Derby semi-final.
Oh, I thought you were just not going to mention that.
Nah, I was going to just for a brief minute we'll bring it up. That must be sore. Those ones.
That was sore.
Is that Paul Hartley
hat trick? I don't know what Big Zibby was doing in the goals right enough, but that was sore. Especially boyhood fan, and that it was you had that one eye on getting a cup finals when you're a young player, and it was probably when I think back to Dundee United getting beat in the semi-final as well in a Moga team. And then obviously the next year getting beat off the Jambos, it was like it almost felt like we just couldn't get over the line to get our hands on that trophy. But to get beat off your arch rivals and get beat as convincingly as we did that day, it was another right good team, the Jambos back then, to be fair to them. But we probably turned up with that swagger that group had and felt we could be really competitive. But I think Gary Smith got sent off, and then I want to say Ivan Sprill might have got sent off as well. So I'm sure we, I don't know how I never got sent off, because there's no doubt I got booked and I've probably seen red mist at some stage. But It was a sore one.
And then winning the cup with Rangers 2008 was at St Johnstone, penalties in the semi again. That pressure cooker of especially then when you're in that one as a big favourite. I mean, you almost can't. We've spoken about Celtic this weekend. Can't really imagine that going to penalties against St Johnstone.
And then obviously you get to the final, Queen of South. So you think like a favourites tag is a huge favourites tag, but I never played well at Hampden ever really. Just always felt like, I don't know, the pitch was always sticky. It was even though at times it was plenty of grass on it, but I don't know. Just from my memories, I always felt as though like I never really done myself justice in semi-finals or finals, and it certainly wasn't through lack of trying. But there is no better feeling going up these stairs. There is no better feeling than being in front of the fans. It's what we all do it for. It's all the sacrifice. So when you do get that opportunity to lift a trophy, it's pretty special.
It is. It's a sore stage of the competition if it doesn't go. I think maybe for the bigger clubs, if you're talking about Aberdeen and Hearts being in here, they get there semi often. So it's like, I'm not saying it's not an achievement to get there, but you know what I mean. It doesn't go down on the CV the same.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. When you are a bigger club and you kind of fall at that stage, it feels totally different rather than someone who's in there as like an also ran. Like St Johnstone will be proud no matter what happens on Sunday. Listen, we're all speaking about Celtic going through, and I've got no doubt Celtic will go and beat them comfortably. But those players won't come off that pitch, and think, we've let ourselves down here. I think they'll still be, quite happy with themselves in terms of getting there and then, refocus on the league.
Let's look at the Championship, because it could be the weekend that it's all sealed. Falkirk, I think most people expect them to get there at some point anyway. Friday night game, Livy and Ayr, your old team. And then Falkirk waiting in the wings. If the result goes their way Friday night, they'll just try and get the points. There were Livingston against Ayr on Friday and Falkirk Wraith on Saturday. So it could be only a point that Falkirk need, depending how the Friday night result goes. You're just waiting for the arithmetic to be ticked off and it become official. Yeah,
listen, I think Livingston and United are both now battling for second place because the advantage that gives you in the playoff in terms of playing less games. So tonight's a massive game for that reason. Falkirk, listen, it's all in their own hands, and they've done magnificently well to go up from League One to now be at the top of the Championship and on the cusp of being in the Premier League. I expect them to beat Wraith. I know Wraith have kind of turned it around and they're right on the edge of the playoffs, right behind Partick. But yeah, I expect them to win it regardless. And yeah, like you said, there's a massive game tonight between Livingston and United. Might actually go to that, Gordon, depending on the temperature, mate, and if it's raining. If it's raining, I'm not going. I'll watch on TV.
And what sort of minimum temperature are you looking for?
It needs to be around 5-6 degrees.
Well, that'll be fine.
Yeah?
I thought you were going to set your sights a bit higher.
It's never that in Livingston.
No?
It's always freezing.
I know. He's never been. He goes to Premier League grounds.
They'll deserve it when they get there, and everyone knows it's sort of coming. But it'll be nice maybe for Falkirk if they can do it on their home patch this weekend.
Yeah, it would be. I think. Listen, it's a credit to John McGlynn and what he has built all the way through League One, and obviously I know a few of the Falkirk players. Young Dylan Tate, who was at Hibs with me, was someone who I really liked, and he's obviously had to go away. He came in loan to Arbroath with me, and it didn't quite work out. Falkirk took him in, and what John McGlynn's done with him, he's worked wonders. But that team, football to play, kind of exciting football, for me being the best team, the standout team in Championship. And I'd love to see how they then progress coming up to the Premiership. So if they can win it at home, the fans will be absolutely delighted.
It was already going to be a massive weekend. You've got going for second place in the Friday game, Airdrie are trying to stay up. You go down that next fixture, Dunfermline are trying to stay up, Partick Thistle trying to consolidate the playoffs, Falkirk trying to win the league, Wraith trying to get in the playoffs, Hamilton Accies and Queen's Park trying to survive, and then a 15-point deduction for Hamilton. Can you even begin to imagine what the players would feel like, the fans, the management, when you're hit with that at this stage of the season?
I think they'll all be in shock. Obviously we saw in the newspaper articles leading up to the decision that everyone's speaking about it being 6 points because of what happened at Bonnyrigg, and then it transpires that obviously there's a lot more charges against Hamilton. But from a player's point of view, I've been in administration, which meant a minus 15, I think, on 2 occasions.
Where was
and
that?
Also a minus 21 at Bournemouth.
Have you?
Yeah, and we managed to survive on a minus 21, but that happens at the start of the season. You're
got
going
minus
into
21.
Minus 21,
stayed up.
Yeah, and we stayed up. But you knew you go into the season with that minus 21 at this point.
And with 2 weeks left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult to turn around. So from a player's point of view, it's one of those that they've worked extremely hard. Last 2 results have been really, really good. You think, right, we're sorted here. We're out the playoff spot. Let's just stay in the league and then we'll kick on again next season. To now be bottom of the table, things out of your own hands. And listen, tomorrow's game is massive. It depends where their players are mentally as well, Gordon. Because I think it's going to be real difficult for Hamilton now to stay up, to state the obvious. But then, going forward, what does it look like for them?
Going to be a weird occasion, that, isn't it? For the fans, so you turn up there and you want to get behind the team and get behind the players. That crowd's there. You'll be kind of angry and frustrated at everybody. It's all of a sudden become a really interesting afternoon at Hamilton.
Yeah, tough. Listen, we've seen Inverness go through it. We've seen Dumbarton. It's Bonnyrigg have obviously had the deduction. Potentially could go back down to the Lowland League. Obviously playoffs to navigate. So you want to see teams do well. Gordon, it's a natural thing. I think back to Hamilton being a Premier League club really when I was playing, and you think back to MacArthur and McCarthy's and some of the young talent. I know they've kept on producing that over the years, but they were obviously two standouts when I was playing. To then see them in the position that they're in is sad, because you just wonder how it's going to look for them moving forward. We all know when clubs go through these difficulties, they've got abundance of fans and they're not a huge club. So I just hope they don't suffer too much.
You've been a manager though, Tomo. What would your meeting be today with those players with that news coming out yesterday? Because obviously you're going to have to address it.
You would hope that there'd be some hierarchy that would have some involvement in that, so as you could give the players some clarity, I presume. And obviously no ranks well. I know you know him well as well, so you feel really sorry for him to be put in the position that he's in, because they probably picked up a wee bit of form in the last few weeks, and it looked like they were maybe going to survive, or they were certainly in a fight with Dunfermline in Queen's Park to obviously try and get out of that bottom position. Airdrie obviously just probably a couple of disappointing results in the last couple of weeks, but I don't know. What do you say to players? I think you have to take personal pride in doing your job still until told otherwise.
But it's interesting we go straight for the players. So obviously the manager, the coaching staff, all the people who work in the club as well. It's more than just more the players sometimes. And I think you make a good point in terms of somebody from the hierarchy's got to give a bit of clarity, because I played with Ranks. He was one of my original car skills when I first made into Dundee United first team. And he prides himself on professionalism, John. So listen, it's been tough for him, and some of the results they've picked up over the last few weeks, you're looking they're going to stay out this relegation playoff. But to me now they're in real trouble.
And for a few weeks there's been a race to see who the first champion would be, and it is Arbroath of League One. So congratulations to everyone involved. Get co-managers there as well, winning the first title in Scotland, and we especially arranged a former Arbroath midfielder in Scott Allan to come on and give us the big kid. See, it's great. See when you've played for everybody. I know. He's not like a safe pair of hands, whatever story comes up. No, but seriously, big achievement. I'm assuming still know some of the boys in the dressing room. Yeah, well,
I know one of the co-managers really well, David Gold. You know him as well, Tom, obviously through the Edinburgh connection. Listen, they came in obviously off the back of Jim McIntyre, and obviously players who came through with Dick Campbell over the last 10 years, so they came in, they've implemented their own style of play, more attractive, and some of the loan signings have gotten, Boy Penman, Fraser Taylor have been excellent for them. So listen, when you're crowned champions that early on in the season, we still, I think, 4 games to play, then fully deserved, and good to see them back in the Championship.
And talking of turnarounds as well, the turnaround that they've made, because like you said, they came in, the season already started, and they had to deal with the players that were currently there. So we're speaking about time in terms of Hearts. Those two have done magnificently well. First as interim, and then to get the job on a permanent basis. And I said to win that league the way they have, as being a part-time team as well, has been brilliant for them.
I think that's pretty much us. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Right. Hopefully Stephen Naismith's back next week. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But thank you very much to Marvin Bartley. Nevertheless, he tried his best, bless him. And thanks to Kevin Thomson and Scott Allan. Really enjoyed the Insight Scottish Cup semi-final weekend. Always special. Some of those leagues can be wrapped up or getting closer to being wrapped up as well. So plenty to look forward to. Thanks for watching the warm-up, brought to you by William Hill, a proper supporter of the SPFL.